Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and Dopamine. Hello. Welcome to Dungeons and Dopamine.
I was going to see how long you could go.
I figured you were testing me.
But then it looked like you were having trouble breathing, so I jumped in.
The blue skin gave it away.
Yes.
I'm Jess.
I'm Bree.
We're on 55 episodes.
Yay!
However you want to say it.
We are on 55 episodes, in fact. We are both in every episode.
Our IMDb's would be very impressive. I was going to say we wouldn't be counted on the one, but Brighton and Ryan just did our opener, so.
So we were still on there, yeah.
Yeah.
They don't count. Only us.
Truly, they would only be on one. So, I mean.
We're obviously the stars.
Yeah, I don't know what I was trying to prove, but I did. I proved it.
I love that we're defending ourselves.
to ourselves.
Screw you, naysayers. I'm on every episode of my own podcast.
Talking to our own ADHD. I did this for real. I deserve to be here.
For real.
We just enjoyed some delicious cake balls.
Cake balls.
And in celebration of our 1-year episode, which actually released yesterday, but we are now 2 away because this is the past and the future.
Figure that one out.
Bump. So
That was fun.
I did the thing.
We have the worst technological gremlins. It's not Jessica at all. It's the gremlins.
Absolutely. I don't know what I did, but I waved my... I waved my hands around and everything died. Everything went silent.
The voice meter thing just went flatline. It was like we died.
The podcast flatlined. Dungeons and DopaDead.
DopaDead.
I don't remember what we were talking about. I was talking about cake balls, I think. In the past and the future,
yes.
And I caused some kind of paradox.
And the world ended.
I am very sorry.
So we're coming up on the end of the school year, and I was like, Connor, are you excited about, being done with school and having the summer off? And he was like, well, yeah, but I'm going to miss my friends.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, you don't need to miss your friends. I have all your friends. Like, you're going to see Carly, you're going to see Resney, you're going to see Miles and Warren and Hobie and Charlie. Like, we got that. But I was like, oh, no, like, he's at the age now where he has friends at school. So what do? Do I, send him with a business card? Like, if you want to talk to Connor this summer, here's his mom's phone number.
I got a business card that said, want to set up a play date? And it had the mom's name and number on it.
I think I'm going to do that.
It was really cute. I felt charmed by it. I really liked it. Now, I still have the card and I'm such a wuss. I have not reached out. Carly's like, Mom, you gotta text my friend's mom. We want to have a play date. And I'm like, I don't
wanna.
That scares me. I do really like one of the moms of one of her friends. We ended up connecting really well. We had to connect. We had to drive all the way to Pine Knob for
that's right, for
a
the
Kids Bop concert for me
when
to
you
hit on.
flirted with
Yeah.
the confession
Stranger.
guy.
Yeah. Sorry, bro. So sorry. Well, and I didn't actually let it out, but I'm sorry that it almost came to that.
I'm sure you saw it on your face.
The regret.
like your nice friendly face, and then a thoughtful face, and then a horrified face.
Then I just grabbed all the drinks and ran. They weren't even all mine. So we're gonna pretend that that's an urban legend. Mm-hmm. You want to hear some other?
I
legends?
sure do.
Did you like that? That was
that was a really good transition.
I'm pleased.
Let's pretend.
So I told you before I had a whole different topic for my second topic today. And I just wasn't feeling it yet. I started thinking about it. I'm like, I need to still be in Michigan. I want to still be in Michigan. But what do I talk about? We talked about lighthouses and shipwrecks and ghosts and haunted Muskegon. I decided, after consulting with my bestie, Gemini, that...
I feel replaced.
Sorry, my other
That
bestie,
bitch.
Gemini. Look out, Gemini. She come for you.
She knows. Hide.
She knows. That's a song. Anyway, yeah, I decided to do Michigan Urban Legends.
Yay.
This first one is really fun. He's the Nain Rogue. Nain. Nain. Like rain, I'm guessing.
Sure.
And this is a goblin-like creature with glowing eyes. He's said to haunt the forests of southern Michigan. Legend claims it can manipulate people and it brings misfortune to all who encounter it.
I don't like him. I don't want to see him.
Well, too bad. I've invited him here today. He just comes out of my closet or off under my bed. No, he'd have to be outside. I'm not inviting him in.
Right.
I open the curtains. There's a microphone that leads out the window.
I would be so impressed.
He's been waiting here this whole time. Yeah, give him that cake ball. It's so stupid. Why is my brain like this? Alright, there's no records that indicate the legend of the Nain Rogue existed prior to the 1880s, but it is verified to be that it appeared in a book of legends in 1883. So the author described him as a dwarf, very red in the face, with a bright glistening eye.
One?
I guess. The images I've seen make him look like a little devil, and he does have two eyes.
Maybe one is wide.
Maybe one is glistening. The other's dry. He's like, I'm not trying to be a bad dude, but my eye hurts so bad.
Just need some eye drops.
And you gotta get some Visine. Even with a grinning mouth displaying sharp pointed teeth. They always have pointed teeth. Pointed teeth. The legend says that Detroit's founder, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, was told by a fortune teller to appease him, but instead attacked him with his cane and shouted, "Get out of my way, you red imp!"
Well, that was his first mistake.
Seriously.
We should treat these fae with respect.
We should not hit them with canes and yell at them in weird accents.
Especially weird accents.
I feel like he's maybe French, so it should be, "Get out of my way, you red imp."
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks. I have to redeem myself in our second year. I
Have you been practicing accents?
Absolutely. We. So, as a consequence for hitting the poor dude with his cane, as he should have consequences, because no one should hit anybody with anything, he had a string of bad luck, is what happened.
I was waiting for, he was murdered horrifically.
His skin peeled off, one bit at a time, like a banana.
Oh.
Sorry. He was charged with abuse of power and reassigned to Louisiana. Sorry, guys.
You can do that?
Don't go to Louisiana. Don't abuse
I know you're the
power.
founder of Detroit, but get down to Louisiana.
You're power hungry. Power hungry. So this guy, and he lost his fortune. Oh, he ended up getting sent back to France as well.
So he was French.
He was French. The name looked it. And I think I've read these notes before, so I probably had it stored in there somewhere. The Nain Rogue is also known as the Demon of the Strait. His appearance would foretell bad stuff was going to happen. He would appear before big events. So he showed up July 30th, 1763, before the Battle of Bloody Run, where 58 British soldiers were killed by the natives. The Indians were from the Pontiac Ottawa tribe. Supposedly, the Nain Rogue also danced among the corpses at the bank of the Detroit River after the battle, and the river, quote-unquote, turned red with blood for days after. According to the tale, all the misfortunes of Governor and General William Hull, leading to the surrender of Detroit in the War of 1812, are blamed on him. Several sightings were later reported in the 20th century. 2 utility workers claimed to have seen the creature just before the 1967 Detroit riots.
Whoa.
And supposedly, it also was seen before an ice storm in 1976, which I think is like the big one that our parents still talk about.
I think, no, yeah, you might be right. 76 or 78.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it might have been. Anyway. It's,
but still.
Sure, yeah.
That's a really long time for a legend to last
Right.
without, like, I mean, how does that legend get passed down?
Right.
Interesting.
French people.
Only French people.
With canes. Angry French people with canes. Everything about this episode is wildly offensive. The whole story comes from may stem from a 1700s French encampment when they lived here and called it New France, because we always have to touch on that when it happens. It might have stemmed from the French lutin, a type of hobgoblin.
Okay.
Could also be a Native American legend, an impish offspring of a stone god, or it could be like a mesh of both of those.
I like that.
One expert that I want to quote directly says the Nain rogue is a defender of sorts for those on the losing end of history. Historically, he has been mostly a menace to those in power.
I like him.
So yeah. I thought you might change your opinion after we got...
He's a little morally gray.
Yeah.
My kind of dude.
There is a headless horseman of M59.
What? You know how much I love the Headless Horseman.
Nay.
I love you so much.
That's literally only you and I. The only people who will appreciate that. And I'm keeping it in.
Thank you.
This one bummed me out a little bit because when you searched it, this guy has a billion festivals in Michigan. Like, everywhere. But they're just called the, like, Headless Horseman festivals and stuff. They don't specifically talk about M59. But it did pop up a little bit. So, the story claims that a headless horseman appears riding down the road on foggy nights and sometimes will chase vehicles. Some believe it's the spirit of a Native American warrior, while others claim it's a vengeful figure from a more recent tragedy. I can't find a lot on it.
It's Paul Revere.
Honestly. Yes.
Or
Nay.
Ichabod Crane. I got nothing. I think that's the name of the Headless Horseman, by the way. I didn't just come up with that out of nowhere.
I remember the movie Sleepy Hollow. Actually, I remember watching it at Miranda's house. Shout out. What's up, Miranda?
Oh, true. In
her
the barn. On the hay. Corey was there.
Hey. Yeah, I remember that too. Lots of festivals. The end. These ones might be my favorite. Not like necessarily my favorite thing, but I liked this out of all of our, besides our Dogman obs.
Of course.
The melon heads. So the melon heads are generally described as a small humanoid with bulbous head who occasionally emerge from hiding places to attack people. Think the pygmies in The Mummy Returns.
All right.
Insert shrieking pygmy now.
Thanks, Ryan.
The really crazy thing about this is that there are 3 different variations from, I guess there are different variations from 3 different states. Michigan, Ohio, and Connecticut.
I was 100% sure you were going to say Indiana or Illinois. I would have accepted either. But no, Connecticut. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, Michigan, Ohio must be like something that was around. Connecticut.
No, Connecticut.
Just wanted us to be connected to Gilmore Girls.
we needed something to connect us to the east side of the country.
Exactly. So these are in Michigan. I want to talk mostly about our legend. Mm-hmm. There is a mansion near Saugatuck. It was called the Felt Mansion.
I read about the Felt Mansion.
Have you? Okay,
yes.
yeah. I thought it was kind of interesting because you have a family with the last name.
They do, or at least they used to do, like, concerts there.
Really?
Yeah. I was going to go to one. I was super stoked.
After the owner of the mansion died, it became a Catholic seminary preparatory school, and then served a lot of different uses within the church for a while. I truly didn't dig into the depths of this mansion because it's not the important part.
Now I'm going to do an episode about the Felt Mansion because it does have some really cool history.
That's cool. And then you can talk about the melon heads.
Perfect. Full circle.
So it's actually believed that these are children who were born with deformities, and they were actually sent to an asylum that was near the mansion. Okay. And the story says that the doctor severely abused and neglected these children and ran experiments and stuff on them, kind of the usual fare. And that the children ended up going feral and leaving. They put them out because they couldn't control them anymore.
It's like when your pet snake gets too big, so you release it into the wild.
Or all the alligators in the sewers.
Yeah. These children are too unwieldy for me.
I will let them
put them outside.
Put them into the snow. So, the other story is that the children overtook the hospital and killed the doctor, and then they chopped him up and put him in different places in the hospital because they didn't have anything else to do with the body, which seems like a terrible idea because then everywhere is going to smell instead of just where you put him.
Right.
Whatever.
They were children, so
I guess, yeah, and feral and big heads. Maybe it was hard to smell. I don't know. So insensitive. After dark. There is actually a big rumored story going around in the area that a group of teens had broken in, and when they were in there, they would see apparitions of children and then shadow ghosts of the doctor.
Ooh.
Following them around.
Ooh, that's worse.
Film was released based on this story in 2011. It is just called Melon Heads.
Really?
Yeah, that was really crazy to me.
I think you're lying.
I do, all the time.
I know.
Incessantly.
Every podcast topic is a lie.
The funny thing about these stories from all 3 states is that they're actually all fairly similar. Like, kind of a children, deformed, abused. I think it's kind of weird.
It's super weird.
That they were kind of like that. So, there is the legend of Elias Frisk. I don't know if you've ever heard. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, north of Rockford, Michigan, is an old rickety metal bridge. In my opinion, it looks pretty unsafe and shoddy. It looks like one of those, grates, mesh grates.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes across this fairly docile-looking river. It doesn't look wild. It doesn't look unwieldy. It's not like the Grand or anything. There's a little parking lot and, a corkboard, and, looks like you could maybe launch some, canoes or something in that area.
Mm-hmm.
But the story says that in the 1800s, Elias Frisk rounded up several of the children of Rockford. One story specifically said 7, and he lured them to follow him to a bridge where he murdered the children and then tossed their bodies into the river. When the townsfolk woke up the next day and found their children missing, they found Elias covered in blood, and they hanged him for his crime. Before they hanged him, he claimed that the devil told him to do it. Or the other version of that is that he was ordered to bring them to a demon that was at the river and gave them to the demon.
Ooh.
So either way, really creepy. Now it is said that you can go to that spot and look in the river and see their faces at night.
Mm.
You can also hear their screams. Unfortunately, a lot of the sites that I saw, and I hate reporting this part, said that there's really no Elias Frisk in history. But
jerks.
The road is Frisk Road, and the thought is maybe there was someone and that it got sort of morphed into this one common, Elias was the name, but Frisk was the road, so it just started to morph together.
So could have been Elias Smith.
Exactly.
Or Elias Jones.
Elias on Frisk Road, and someone heard it wrong. They played telephone.
We just solved the mystery.
Exactly. We do that so good.
Mm-hmm.
We're great mystery solvers. We should have a Great Dane. Scooby-Doo.
Got it. Took me a minute.
I
was like,
saw the
why?
confusion, and then I saw the realization on
Why
your
would
face.
we need a Great Dane? We already have dogs.
We absolutely big dogs right outside.
We can just use Abby.
Abby Dabby Doo.
Where are you? She'd accept.
I agree. I mean, I think she would. I don't know her. She's your dog.
What?
All right. Now this one, bear with me. This one is really strange, and full disclosure, I've been asking AI recently to help me make an outline for my stories because it helps me keep a better rhythm. And it gave me this, and I thought it was too cool to pass up. So I added some stuff that I know is absolutely true and then left the rest in here. I thought it was okay because this is urban legends.
True.
So
We don't know what's true and what's not.
Exactly. So do you remember the Palace at Auburn Hills? It's a sports arena where the Pistons played. Mm-hmm. It was taken down. It's been down, I think, almost 4 years now.
Okay.
But apparently it was pretty, rumored to be pretty haunted when it was open. It was a major, concert venue, sports venue. The Pistons played there, for anybody who doesn't know. It was opened in 1983, so really not that long ago.
Right.
It was...
It wasn't open that long either.
No, it really wasn't. One thing I found said it was closed down in 2007, but then I saw something that said that the Pistons played in it up until almost it got, imploded is what they, I guess, did to it. They kind of blew it up and collapsed it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know about that part, but... So, they're saying that during construction, a lot of weird stuff happened, things moving and equipment malfunctioning. There was apparently a weird energy about the place, so people who had visited before felt weird. Mm-hmm. And something, I don't know, I guess to play off of that, so to speak, there was an event at this place in 2004, which was the year we graduated. Let's date ourselves.
Approximately 20 years ago.
So, this is November 2004. And it is an event called Malice at the Palace. You can look it up on Wiki.
Was it a wrestling match?
It wasn't. Because we would have been there.
Right. Why weren't we there?
So this was Detroit versus Indiana. It was a playoff rematch game. The Indiana Pacers, were winning. And I'm going to quote this because it's basketball jargon, and I don't want to try and reword it because I don't basketball much. Detroit's Ben Wallace went in for a layup and was fouled hard by Indiana's Ron Artest from behind. After being fouled, Wallace wheeled around and pushed Artest in the face. Both teams emptied their benches and all hell broke loose. The full team, you can watch the video. It's pretty insane. It's kind of intense.
Yeah. The pictures are, wow.
One of the coaches was quoted saying something along the lines of, "I'm really ashamed that the game ended this way," but it was like fighting for your life. It was like a fight and get out of the situation, not a fight because I'm mad anymore kind of fight.
Right.
I thought that was kind of strange after reading about how some people said it had a really weird feeling, or maybe heightened feelings about it, and then you get this playoff game which will already have high energy, high feelings, but it erupted into this overblown crazy fight.
Oh my gosh.
So that is why I included this, because while it might just be a stupid urban legend, I thought that was kind of crazy.
I mean, Netflix did a whole movie about it, apparently.
Yeah.
So
it's a big deal.
A 5-part docuseries event. Malice in the Palace. A brawl broke out near the end of a game between the Indiana Pacers and the Detroit Pistons on November 19th, 2004. Nearly 17 laters,
all 17 laters.
Nearly 17 years later, we re-examined that night and all the consequences that came from it. Netflix has a whole deal about it.
And I'm just giving you...
That's
very
crazy.
Basic. So it is gone. I didn't find anything else. I didn't find verification of the, hauntings or people saying, "Oh, I was there one night and it felt so off." Or I worked there and lights used to turn off all the time. None of that stuff is quoted anywhere. But I thought, literally, since it was something that AI had suggested, that it has to exist somewhere. And then I found this Malice in the Palace, and I just thought that was too much of a coincidence to not share. So maybe it's a stretch, but I liked it. This next one is kind of creepy because I've been in the area it's talking about. This is called The Ghost of Baker Road. It is sort of one of your very typical... Every state in the world probably has this story. Baker Road near Greenville in Eureka Township, Montcalm County.
Okay. So, I didn't know we had a Eureka Township, and I want to live there now.
We do. I drive through it almost every time, or drive by or near it every time I go to Frankenmuth.
That makes sense.
The legend said a young woman was walking down a dark, winding road one night when she was hit by a car and killed. Now, if you drive down the road, you might see orbs, flickering lights, or the figure of a girl walking down the road. Another kind of more disturbing, in my opinion, version is that 2 girls were walking down that road, and one was killed by someone drag racing through the streets. These definitely sound a bit more like cautionary tales to me, like something I would go tell Carly to make sure she didn't go out walking in the roads at night, or drag race. I mean, you tell Connor not to.
Man, I feel like if people were drag racing, they would know to get out of the road, though.
Street racing is... don't do it, guys. Yeah. All right, this is my last one, and it's kind of a pretty one. Did you say good or burp into the microphone? I can't tell.
Both. Good.
I'm probably going to murder the pronunciation of this, but it is the story of the Singing Sands of Bet, Greece. Ooh. And this is a beautiful beach on the Keweenaw Peninsula, and it has a very odd legend. So when you walk or run your hands through the sand, it emits an eerie musical sound.
I want to go there.
This is also on the beach of Lake Superior, so we have like a whole Lake Superior arc to take.
We're going to have the best road trip ever.
It's going to be incredible. Every city in Michigan is going to be visited. I'm really excited about our Mackinac one, though. Yes. That's going to be amazing. So, the legend is that the singing comes from the spirit of a Native American maiden whose lover died in Lake Superior, and she is said to be singing to him in an effort to communicate with him after his death.
Do you think Old Whitey
is her Native American lover? I don't think Old Whitey was Native American, but
we wouldn't know. Wish. He's been there so long. Maybe he just looks really pale.
Yes.
Thanks.
I choose this.
Mm-hmm. You didn't mention any other shipwrecks.
Right.
I'm sure that's the only one.
Native Americans were well known for getting on ships. Transporting goods.
And lifesavers. All of our stories are connected, okay?
Everything we've ever done is connected to everything we've done or will do.
Yes. This is the premise of the podcast.
This story does get a little more strange because if you go to the beach and you take a Tupperware or something of the sand and you leave the beach, it will no longer sing when you are off the beach.
That's sad. I wanted to bring the singing sand home.
Right? And I did watch a video of someone doing it. Now, I don't know if you've ever walked in the sand in Lake Michigan. Not that we've been there together.
Not that we grew up there, but
when you get your feet wet and then you're walking in the sand and you hear it go wheat, it's similar to that.
Okay.
But you don't have to have wet feet. You can just run your fingers through it and it does it.
Oh, that's weird.
It's so weird.
Let's go.
Right?
I'm booking our trip right now.
Oh, and I'm sorry, no other beaches in the area sing. Just this one. And then, of course, my most favorite hobo legend. I read the word homie.
She's so disappointed in herself. Sorry that I'm laughing. Your face.
I can't get past all of the urban legend stuff without mentioning my homie, the dog man of Michigan, whose next appearance is expected to be in 2027. And I really wanted to read that like I was like a disc jockey on the radio talking about some kind of performer, but I'm just so done. Let's talk about something you have to say.
I hope we're still podcasting in 2027 so we can meet the dog man.
I hope we're
Because we
famous.
can only meet him if we're still podcasting. Because he's going to search us out so he can be on our show.
Obviously. Can we just pay Hank to come be on our show dressed as the dog man?
I bet he would.
I bet he would.
Dear Hank.
My dearest Hank.
I need you to obtain a dog man costume.
It's gonna be fine.
Don't ask questions. Just do it.
Make sure it's realistic looking. I don't want any cheap shit. This show
No
is like
fake dog man bullshit for us.
This is a serious show.
Yep. So, I don't even know how to transition to this topic.
I'm not sure what your topic is. I can't
I know.
help.
I never told you. Haha. It's about Pride Month
Ooh,
and
okay.
the importance of representation in literature. So this is my redo of my book banning topic that I felt like I failed at, and it turned out much better. So it does. I do start with it being, June is Pride Month, and So Pride Month kind of started as like a self-proclaimed gay pride day, and it's always at the end of June, and it started to honor the Stonewall riots, which was a series of riots for gay liberation that took place over several days, which actually began on June 28th of 1969, which is only weird because the topic you talked about last week happened to include the date June 28th as something.
Oh.
And I was like, hey, I know that date. They're not related. It was like the 1700s, and this is 1969. So these riots began after like a tipping point police raid that took place at the Stonewall Inn, which is a gay bar in New York City, which is still there. We could have gone when we were in New York. This led to a riot which lasted several days.
To the Beetlejuice bar instead.
But
It was a restaurant. It was amazing.
And it was amazing. Nobody died during these riots, which is incredible because it started with a police raid. But there were injuries and many arrests, and this is considered an important event in LGBTQ history, as it started kind of a bigger push for normal human rights, like not being bothered and arrested just for being gay in public, which is essentially why they would raid gay bars. So the Stonewall Inn,
just because.
Yeah, the Stonewall Inn was kind of like a hangout place, obviously, for gay people, but also for trans people and, drag queens and all of that. And the police would just come raid it for funsies whenever they wanted. The year after the riots, peaceful marches were held to remember the riots and just everything that happened. And then it began to spread to other cities and grow into the celebrations we see today as Pride Festival. International Pride Day also happens to be June 28th. And in 1995, the U.S. actually designated June as LGBTQ month. Now, every time we talk about, a particular group of people having a whole month designated for them, we always have the people in the stands that like to get whiny about, why isn't there a month for me, or why do they deserve it, or why can't they just keep it to themselves, why do they have to be so loud about it, all of those things. I do want to talk about why representation and acknowledgement and celebration of certain groups is important in life and in literature and in the media. And this isn't just about the LGBTQ communities, even though I'm starting with that because it is Pride Month. This is about anybody that's experiencing discrimination or marginalization. This could be race, religion, gender, family structure, disabilities, whether they're visible or not. Wait, how people look, basically whatever differences you can think of. This is about children being able to find books with characters that reflect them, or watch movies or videos. Little Susie being able to find books with characters that have glasses, or little Tommy being able to watch movies with characters that use wheelchairs, or just all kids being able to find glimpses of themselves in characters, regardless of which grown-up answers the phone when the school calls or what the color of their skin is. We still have an issue in our country, but probably in most countries, that the media that we ingest and that we let our children ingest every day is still not very representative of our culture or the children of the world. In the U.S., where parents are still scandalized over characters that express any sort of LGBTQ feelings, or any portrayal of any like normalization of culture or choices that isn't like the white nuclear family. Something to know as I talk about this is, even in the United States, we're at a point where 40% of our population is from these minorities, and whether that's their race, their culture, woman versus man, but we still have a culture that focuses on basically white men. But we are becoming a country where that's not even the majority anymore. But the melting pot of our cultures and our skin colors and our lifestyles, we're not the majority anymore, or we won't be very soon. So the only thing I'll say about book banning today is that it exists because people are afraid that their way of life might become the minority someday. They're terrified to look beyond their immediate circle, and they're terrified of the idea that by seeing these things on screen or in books, we're telling our children that it's okay. But it is okay. The Little Mermaid came under a big storm because they remastered The Little Mermaid and they made The Little Mermaid black. We had trouble with, I think I'd talk about it later too, but the Barbie movie, which was very pro-woman and very pro-strong woman. There was a lot of problems with that. We've seen
hate.
Even the Princess and the Frog movie that came out a while ago. There was drama then because they chose Tiana to be a black woman in the South, in Louisiana, during a time when there would have been plenty of black people in the South.
Meyer wanted you to have some background music.
Thanks, Meyer.
I have this conversation a lot. Ryan and I are really big fans of the Marvel movies. Mm-hmm. And we didn't force her to, I don't want to sound like that, but we have really pushed like Captain Marvel and Wanda and some of the strong female characters. Okay, Wanda turns really evil, but like we're avoiding that. She can't even watch that movie because it's kind of scary.
It's a conversation for an older time.
But we have really shown Carly these women superheroes because we love the princesses, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of the princesses as well and all of the Disney stuff, but we wanted her to have, when she used to fall off her bike, I would tell her, do you know Captain Marvel used to fall off her bike? And one day she got up on her bike and she was like, I'm going to do this because that's what Captain Marvel would do. Yes. And I wept. But those movies are so beat down because they don't have Iron Man in them. They don't have Captain America in them. And people cannot see a strong female. Same with Ahsoka from Star Wars. And Ryan and I love them.
There are so many strong male characters for my son to look up to. And until the last few years, all you had for daughters was princesses. Basically, so we see a lot in the news, people get mad about these changes or these strong women, and we keep hearing the questions, why are they so special? Why can't they just keep quiet? Why would this character have to have this? And, why should it matter? And my point is because it does matter. It matters to the children that belong to those groups of people, and it matters to the adults that have grown up in a world that never reflected who they are. The Trevor Project, I believe, is for LGBTQ teenagers that are at risk for like suicide and who are bullied. And they did in 2022 a national survey on LGBTQ youth mental health. And in that study, 89% of LGBTQ youth reported that seeing LGBTQ representation in TVs and movies made them feel better about who they are. Around 70% also reported feeling good about being LGBTQ if someone famous, like a movie star, a musician, a sports star, comes out or even just advocates and expresses that they are an ally. Some of the things expressed by these children about what brings them joy were things like knowing that there's others out there like me, or seeing LGBTQ people of color in the media. It's that simple. 90% of youth feel better when they recognize themselves in other people. This is not just about sexual orientation. This is important with race, sex, disabilities, family status. So BIPOC, BIPOC, is an acronym for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So it's pronounced BIPOC. I had to look that up. This diversity report in 2023 showed overwhelmingly that BIPOC people make up a majority of movie watchers at this point, both in theaters and streaming like Netflix and Hulu and all of those. And that they also overwhelmingly support movies that have a higher percentage of BIPOC as actors or directors. So again, we especially saw this with the success of the movie Barbie, but in previous years, Hamilton was a huge one that featured a predominantly, I think it was an all-black cast. So Hamilton took a story that was a predominantly white story from our history and used a black cast and a black style of music and director to make a beautiful production that was very, very popular and went over really. And we after that we saw In the Heights, I believe 6 that we talked about today
6.
is a
So
mostly good. The cast is mostly women of color.
And as far as I know, the literal band cast, everything is women. Every performance I've seen has had at least 2 queens that are people of color, as well as their band cast mates being people of color.
Now we know that not only does including minorities or other people from these smaller groups of society improve the image of children that are watching these movies or children that are exposed to this, but now we know it actually makes people want to support and spend more money on media that reflects them. And again, as we become a country that is becoming more or less and less majority white, it is important in many ways that we start focusing on these other groups of people. We obviously know I was a bookworm as a child, and I read nearly anything I could get my hands on. And I remember now that pretty much every book I read had a young white girl as a main character. I remember like Matilda, The Babysitter's Club, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, Nancy Drew. It was all, little white girls that were doing really cool things that I really wanted to do. Matilda was my hero. Harriet the Spy. But so for me, I was reading either books about somebody that I thought reflected something in me, or maybe people that I wanted to be, and it felt very easy. Of course, I could become the twins from Sweet Valley High because, why not?
One of them had my name.
Yeah. Can you imagine, as a child, never being able to pick up a book and read about somebody that was like you? There were no characters that had your skin color or the same grown-ups that you have at home or the same issues you deal with or the same thoughts that you have. Can you imagine living with your grandma because something awful happened to your parents, but every book you read or movie you watch is only about kids with a mom and dad? Or change the scenario, so having a wheelchair or a hearing disability or a learning disability, and never seeing that reflected in anything that you read or anything that you watch on TV. Even as women, we are very unfairly underrepresented in literature and media. There are plenty of women in books, movies, television shows, but very rarely are they in any sort of lead role or superheroes or powerful, strong. They're usually portrayed in like a service related position, or they're raising children, or they're the secretary or the teacher or the nurse. There's even there are tests now that you can do. The well-known one is the Bechdel-Wallace test, and this test asks if a movie has at least 2 female characters who have a conversation about something other than a man. And if you use this test against movies, like 90% of them fail. Even movies that predominantly feature women will often fail this test. This mentions specifically that some movies that do pass this test include Mean Girls, Little Women, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, Black Swan, and Legally Blonde. I want to say even, Lord of the Rings, which is actually considered to be a pretty forward-thinking story from when it was written. Éowyn is one of the heroes, and she's a very strong woman, and her line is, I am no man. But she never talks to another woman.
She has a crush on Aragorn.
Even though he's already betrothed to Arwen. But Arwen and Éowyn never talk.
Who is Arwen being the other strong female character.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
How did I never notice that?
It's crazy. And if you Google and, like, test this on some movies that are supposed to be, you know, women-led or strong women movies, they still often fail the test.
Captain Marvel. Guarantee.
Probably. Yeah, they don't talk about men that much. Another important part about diversity in literature and media to think about is that it actually does teach the rest of us and exposes us to those marginalized and those diminished groups. It can challenge the stereotypes we have about certain groups. It can help break down prejudices that we've unconsciously taken on. And if you come from a place like us that is a predominantly white rural area, it's really easy to build prejudices against groups that you don't come in contact very often. We still live in a county that is predominantly white.
Yes.
We have some diversity in Muskegon County, but when you and I were in school even, there was maybe a handful of black kids, and I don't know if there were any other nationalities. Maybe Hispanic.
We did have a few Asian kids.
Yep. Asian, but it was rare. Like maybe
Yes.
one or two
diversity
kids in each classroom.
It was a very rare sight.
Mm-hmm. And so it becomes easy, especially, you know, raised in a community like this, with parents that were raised in a community like this, to unconsciously build those prejudices and have those ideas that we've either learned from incorrect family members who were racist throughout the years, or just not knowing because we've never been in contact with people of other cultures. And until recently, the media that we were fed often portrayed these other groups in poor or negative ways. This is a good time to touch on how important it is to have good, real representation. So it's not good enough just to have a kid in a wheelchair sometimes in some books or in a show. If you're not representing these groups well and in ways that are accurate, you're really just reinforcing stereotypes or building bad prejudices. We can also see that this is done on purpose sometimes. And this was huge, especially in the United States back in like the Vietnam War era, where the media especially painted entire groups of people as awful human beings. Whether it was, you know, the media portraying what was really happening in Vietnam, and so then people began to hate soldiers. But the media and the government, it's actually been proven now that they work together to basically slam hippies and black people, and also marijuana users. So this is why the war on drugs started. There's actual proof out there that the government was basically like, well, we need more support for the war, so we need to, you know, convince people that something's bad and that these people are bad. So they picked marijuana and then picked two groups that use marijuana, like hippies and black people, and basically started a whole generation of discrimination. You know, all of a sudden it was dirty hippies and
weed does smell really bad.
Well,
not
fair.
that the hippies smell bad because of the weed. That's not what I meant.
It's because they don't wear deodorant.
You just had that poorly timed to throw that in there. Right. Not me. You had it poorly timed.
I mean, it does smell like skunks. But they legit, the government and the media legit painted, you know, it went from being peace-loving hippies to dirty hippies. You know, they were scandalized and promiscuous because they wanted birth control and they wanted the war to stop. And same with black people. They, you know, only black people use marijuana, and they're gangbangers, and they're the Black Panthers,
smart,
and they're lazy, and they're extremists. It was, and you can look it up. Like, the government did this on purpose.
Like when you talked about the Vietnam War, also the way they portrayed Asian culture as stupid. Mm-hmm. Like, they made jokes about them and this was more of like a World War II era thing, mm-hmm. but they put them in media in skits and funny things. And
we rewatched part of 16 Candles.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's like an adopted Asian kid in 16 Candles that is portrayed as just this off-the-wall, like, crazy dumb
Duck Wong.
Something.
It's even his name is offensive.
Yeah, and he like hangs out in trees upside down, and like he's an airhead and he doesn't know what's going on. And this was the 80s, and we were still, or 2001 with the Twin Towers, and all of a sudden we painted all Muslim Americans in this awful light. They were all, they can't speak English, and they're all terrorists. And
these people who wear like turbans and things still get pulled aside and checked more often than a white dude.
Yeah, 100%. This was a really long way for me to basically, this is why. Oh, we are. This is why exposure to real and good representation helps create empathy and understanding between individuals and groups of people, can help open your eyes to the struggles that other people might be going through. Sometimes it's easy to have those prejudices because you don't know what people have been through. It's easy to say, oh, why did they deserve a whole month, when all you see is that they get to have a parade and wear rainbows.
Why do Black Lives Matter? All lives matter.
Right. That type of thing. So knowing this information and learning about these things helps us become more nicer people and more understanding. Again, it helps our children. When we see movies or books or shows or read books with characters who are different than us, but act just like we would, or have the same thoughts, ideas, and dreams as we do, we can start to understand that they aren't all that different. No matter what they look like on the outside, we're all pretty similar on the inside. When we learn about customs and cultures that aren't our own, it becomes easier to find those differences curious instead of scary. And when our children see differently abled children represented in their books and shows, they're more likely to approach differently abled children on the playground. And then I just kind of had a list of books, both from childhood and adulthood, that I think maybe helped me understand or relate to other cultures. It started with, and I will always remember this book, it's called Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. It's by Mildred D. Taylor and my librarian, Mrs. Emelander.
Isn't this so sad?
Oh yeah, it is awful. It is a very sad book. But I read it in elementary school, and it was eye-opening about racism and the civil rights movement, and how even children were discriminated against and treated poorly back then. And it's a series of books, and it's bad. It's very sad.
I believe I read the first one, and I just died inside a little bit, and I don't think I ever read any more.
That sounds about right.
You probably said you should read this, and I did, and then I hated it.
And then I was sad.
I've been waiting 20 years to tell you this.
Another, The Giver, which we've talked about before, and also Number the Stars. They're both by Lois Lowry. So The Giver touched more on imperfect societies, or what we would have to lose to have a perfect society, but also the imperfect things that happen on the outskirts. Number the Stars was a fictional story, but it was about a Jewish family in Denmark during World War II. So for some reason, a lot of the books we read as kids focused on the Holocaust and Jewish culture. Probably because it was the most awful thing that had happened before we were kids.
Yeah, now there's a plethora to choose from.
Yeah, now there's so many. As teenagers in high school, we read Night by Eli Wiesel and Kaffir Boy, which were about, again, the Holocaust and then apartheid in Kaffir Boy.
Kaffir Boy is legit one of my favorite books still to this day.
Same. It's on my bookshelf. We also read The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which was a great book to learn about people that didn't fit in.
Yes.
And how people that are outcasts feel and think, and how they're different than the more popular people. In one of my classes, I read Ziyatun, it's a autobiography about a Muslim American man who survived Hurricane Katrina and the horrific things that happened there after the hurricane. They essentially set up what they called health centers overnight, but what they became was prisons. And this man that wrote Ziyatun, he was basically out in his rowboat, trying to help save neighbors' dogs. And he had sent his family on to, get out of the mess. And so he was by himself. He was saving dogs in his little rowboat, and some cops came and thought he looked suspicious because of the color of his skin, and threw him into this overnight constructed jail in solitary confinement, where he was for weeks, and nobody could find him because everything was chaos then. And it was, just okay that you were discriminating and treating Muslim Americans horrible, because who's going to check on you? I read one book specifically talked a lot about like women's healthcare in other countries, but specifically South Africa, which, it barely exists there, and women are treated as second-class citizens. And all of these have been eye-opening. All of these exposed me to worlds I didn't know of, cultures I had no clue about, and discrimination that I didn't know existed as a white girl growing up in a white community.
In a very secluded, yeah.
So I guess this was another episode encouraging everyone to question the narrative.
Yay!
Take a look at the banned books list and pick a few that were written by someone different than you. Or look for books written by groups that have been silenced or marginalized. Widen your circle. Be willing to learn. Be willing to open your eyes.
Say hi.
And be willing to teach your children.
Yes.
Be willing to let your children read things or watch things about people that aren't like them.
Research the words implicit bias.
Ooh.
I dare you. Mm-hmm. Just do it.
That's a good one.
This is something I've learned about in my day job, so I will not go into it because I don't feel like that's appropriate. But just research it yourself, and it is an eye-opening, difficult thing to learn.
And it's important because we do all have biases.
And in fact,
we do
just
all
search
have prejudices.
biases and look at the different kinds.
And examine your own biases and the biases that you're raising your children with.
I like it.
Thanks.
Question the narrative. Consider other people's feelings.
Stop being jerks.
Is it that simple? Just
you would think so.
Consider how other people would feel.
Treat others as you would want to be treated. This was Dungeons and Dopamine Podcast.
It was.
And it's over.
You can listen to us anywhere you stream podcasts and on the tube of YouTube.
You can also support us on the
Patreon.
I don't know how to say Patreon any different. So the Patreon.
I was like, the Patreon?
The Treon of Pate. Which is www.patreon.com/dungeonsdopamine.
Find us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Insta, and Reddit.
The end. Just kidding. You can also reach out to us on any social medias and at dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com.
She's good. She's all right. Dungeons and Dopamine is edited and published by Argyle Pigeon Productions.
Yay!
It's not the panicked pigeon. Okay.
Thanks.
We love you. Bye.
Bye.